Welcome to the Executive Woman Podcast, Women Changing the Game. I'm your host, Dr. Sheila Robinson, and our mission is to empower women in business, leadership, and life. Each week, we bring you conversations with trailblazing executives and influential leaders who are breaking barriers and reshaping the business landscape. And through these discussions, we aim to provide you with all the tools, strategies, and motivation to advance your career and make a lasting impact in both your life and your career. Whether you are an aspiring leader just getting started, a seasoned executive, or somewhere in between, this podcast is dedicated to supporting your professional journey and fostering a community of empowered women who lift each other up and men, our allies, which brings us to our wonderful special guest today. We are thrilled to have Dr. Janae Battle, CEO of Inclusion Genius Factory. Before I bring him to the virtual stage, I wanted to give you just a little bit about him. He is amazing. He's a global business executive. He brings powerful combination of skillful talent development and human capital expertise. His deep understanding of human relations, personal branding, diversity and inclusion, and organizational performance in the entertainment, sports, retail, and mass media industries. He has a successful track record of business transformation as a whole, human capital, counseling, team building, and executive coaching. So there you have it. You know we have this right guest with us today. Our episode title is Unleashing Inclusive Genius with Dr. Janae Battle. Dr. Battle, welcome to the stage. Let me give your voice to our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Sheila. It's really an honor to be able to chop it up with you today. And this is a conversation that I'm super excited about having with you.
Well, we want to get right off started. I love the name of your organization. And we definitely want to hear about how did the Inclusion Genius Factory come about?
Well, for me, it first started with just thinking through the lens of all of the work that I've done as a practitioner and working with various organizations and how do folks get unstuck, so to speak, right? How can I help them when it comes to the stinking thinking? And we remove that so that folks can feel valued, respected, and supported. And for me, the genius of any leader is to be able to solve for who is it that's being left out. And that aligns with the inclusive design principle work that I do, because if you can solve for one, you can benefit for all. And so as I have been fortunate enough to work with some amazing leaders and some dynamic organizations and play a role in helping them in terms of their journey of transformation, I felt that it was necessary, especially now that we have something that's anchored in how do we unlock the power of the collective genius of an organization so that folks are set up to be successful.
I love how you said so that no one's left out. There seems to be a misconception that if you help one individual, then the other individual, you're taking something from another individual. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I believe in equity, helping everyone have a level playing field. But many people are thinking that diversity and equity, and these are bad words. So can you speak to no one being left out does not mean that someone else is going to lose?
Yeah, the replacement theory is real. It's a real thing, right? And so many folks are really worried about it. But the way that I see it is you either all get to the peak together or you don't get there at all, right? And I like Kevin Costner's line in Hidden Figures, right? When he asked Al, do you know what your job is?
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to find the genius amongst the geniuses in the room. And oftentimes at organizations, this is what they want to do. But, I like the old Peter Drucker quote. Sheila, what people don't realize is this is hard work. Okay. And Peter Drucker said most people don't understand success because it's dressed up in hard work and it's dressed up in overalls. Right. And so to chop wood and really get people to understand it, first you got to move off of the antiquated definition of equality. And that's what really people are doing. They are applying the definition of equality to equity, right? And so if you don't know, you don't know. But if you really know and you know what it looks like in action, then you understand. So equity means everybody. And it's kind of three beliefs that you got to have. Number one, you got to have the belief that all are capable. And
All
then
okay.
number two, you got to have the belief that development is the key. And the people struggle because society sends us messages of select and sort. So if a leader is amazing at developing people, people like to just say, that's just a, Dr. Sheila, she just phenomenal at that. That's just what that's her thing. And see, if I can say that's your thing, then that sets me free to lie to myself and go, I can't be great at development. But development is a learnable skill and process if you're not phenomenal at it. And then here's the third thing where the hard work comes in. It has to be differentiated. And that's what people don't want to do. I don't care whether it's our education system, whether it's the workplace. What they want is they want people to show up and they already know how to do it. Because when you say differentiated, now you're talking about somebody might need a 3-foot ladder of development. Somebody might need a 7-foot ladder of development. But what I'm going to do is meet you where you're at. And when we meet people where they're at, everybody loves that. But what they don't realize is I don't mind meeting you where you at, but growth is not optional once I meet you there.
Okay. And this is why Inclusion Genius Factory is so needed. So let's speak to some of the key programs and initiatives that you're going to be able to help organizations solve those kind of problems. What are some of your key programs and initiatives that are offered by the company?
So the first thing is we don't do training. I do no training.
No
If you're
training.
looking for training, I'm not your guy. Now,
Wow.
if you're looking for organizational transformation, I'm your guy. Okay.
Transformation.
Right. I don't do training. I do transformation. And so if we're talking about transformation, we do everything from leadership assessment, starting at the board level in your company, of each leader being individually assessed first of where is she or he at on their own journey. Because see, folks are not going to do it just because it's like, quote unquote, the right thing to do. If that was the case, we'd be much further along in the work that you and I do. So first, I start with inclusive leader assessment work of where are you at on your own journey. And then that helps you to be able to level set. And I've done this work where I have had, folks who are CDOs of Fortune 50 companies that go, there's no way in the world I can be the CEO of a Fortune 50 company and be where I am now. Yes, it is. Because here's the thing. Everything in life is how we frame it. And in the absence of a framework, every last one of us are left to our own orientation. So depending upon where you grew up, depending upon what you were exposed to or you weren't exposed to, all helps to shape your point of view on how you view not only the unlocking of the power of the collective genius in your organization, but how you even view transformation. So we level set with that. We also level set with doing work at the officer level of being able to do not just individual assessment work, but the collective genius work too. We bring everybody together and give you an aggregate report. And then it's not just the aggregate report, it's what's the wood that we have to chop as we figure out if we're here today, where do we actually want to get to and what does that look like? And then there are other things that we do. I believe that you have to have what I call a curriculum that is leader appropriate within your organization. So what you need your frontline leaders to do who are closest to your customers and communities is going to look very different in their inclusion learning journey than what you might have your most senior leaders in the organization to do. And then differentiated also says, if I have asked the question, who am I leaving behind? Who's being left out? We may find, I let data drive this, right? In God we trust, everybody else must have data. So I let data drive where we are. We have done an organizational evaluation. We have asked ourselves the tough questions for every position within an organization. What I want to know is who gets hired here and at what rate? Who gets promoted and at what rate?
Mhm.
Who exits the organization and at what rate? And in some organization, who's getting demoted and at what rate? Because that data layered on with all of the other things like engagement, et cetera, fill in the blank, all the other processes, rituals, and routines that touch people in an organization. When you align that data, that then gives us a clear roadmap of what we need to do next. So that's some of the work that we do in terms of helping folks on their transformation of being the best that they can very well be.
Well, I tell you what, we'll get transformation when we're if they go through that. So let's jump a little bit into. I mean, you have so much to give. Let's talk about how we can help women. You know, with our title, how can we help women unleash their inclusive genius? As the founder and CEO of Diversity Woman Media and the host of Executive Woman podcast, our theme is women changing the game. And we are all about providing transformational tools, tips and tools, as you just shared, on how women can unleash their genius within them. So let's speak to that a little bit.
So the first thing I want to say is women oftentimes fail to operate in their power.
Okay.
Now, what I mean by that is, like I think the body of work that you did from a research standpoint was really critical and timely when you did it. And it's one of those things that's going to stand the test of time. Because in the beginning, all of the research shows that when you first started talking about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, the people who you saw benefiting from it the most were white women.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you came along and asked the question, well, hold on. What's holding ethnically diverse women back from the C-suite? And I think that that was a timely question. And what I have seen is women oftentimes fail to operate in their power. And what I mean by that is, forgive me for using a sports analogy, but I like the old Bill Parcells quote. And the old Bill Parcells quote says, "You are what your record is." And oftentimes what I see women do is my research over the years has shown that women typically will get hired at a lesser rate, promoted at a lesser rate, but they also exit the organization at a lesser rate. So the inverse of that is men get hired faster, promoted faster, and if they don't get what they want, they leave quicker. Okay? And so women do not operate in their power. You cannot be what you can't see. And if you are what your record is, an organization is not inclusive because they announce that they're inclusive. They are not for women just because they say they are for women. What you have to do is look at the record. You are what your record is. If you don't see a track record of women progressively moving through the organization, ascending to the highest levels within the organization, if you don't even see a track record of readiness, if you cannot look in the pipeline, if you don't understand from a succession planning standpoint, you have no idea where you're at. You have no idea what's next for you. Nobody has told you what you're being developed for. Then you might want to reassess the power that you have within the organization. And oftentimes, because women are grittier and they stay longer, they will not ask the tough questions of, can you clearly articulate for me the value of where you see me at today? What do you see my potential being down the road? And then how do we reverse engineer from what you see my potential being to where I am today so I have an expected arrival date of where I want to be? Now, this is what I say all the time to all underrepresented talent. Your excellence is your currency. Okay. And so you need to look at your excellence as your currency. And if the organization cannot answer those questions for you, then that's telling you what you need to do next.
So we need to operate in our power.
You got to sit in your power.
Sit in our power. Now, how can we as women tell if we are in an organization that is going to support us and allow us to operate in our power, to be able to have these conversations, to make sure that we are operating in our power in the right place?
Oh my goodness, you asking all the right questions today. The thing is, you don't go alone. You do not go it alone. If you look across different functions, if you don't see progression happening in your supply chain, if you don't see it happening in the finance department, if you don't see it happening, but you see underrepresented talent, you have to get together, because here's the thing. In the workplace, people vote with their feet every day.
Okay.
Every day that they walk into that organization, they're saying, I believe that you have something here for me. I am trusting that you are developing me. But here's the thing. You have to say to them, we have no idea. You do not go it alone. This is the collective genius of everyone coming to the table. So you have to have underrepresented talent, particularly when it comes to women that are saying, we'd like to hold a meeting. We'd like to have a conversation with the leadership team. We're looking around. We don't know. Maybe we are in your plans when it comes to succession planning, but no one is clearly telling us that we are. And more importantly, we don't see ourselves being developed to be there. All right. And so this is one of those things where you have to become so intentional about operating in your power that you then have the collective genius of all of the women come to the table and have a seat. See, one by one, you can't do it that way, because if you're doing it one by one conversation at a time, the organization can then take you down the train of what I call, to use Dr. King's words from his I Have a Dream speech, right? They want you to drink from the tranquil cup of gradualism. And we can't drink from the cup of gradualism, right? Women have to have a fierce urgency of now. That's what Dr. King said. That was important in the 60s, and it is important right now. If you have a fierce urgency of now, aligned with all of you all being aligned with where we are and what we want, now you go as the collective to have the conversation with leadership. Because see, one woman having the conversation, they might be okay if that person decides to pivot and lead an organization. But all the ethnically diverse women, that's a different conversation. And that's how you operate in your power.
Operate in your power and don't go alone. You know, I rarely have a guest with the amount of experience and expertise that you have across all industries. And I want to take the advantage of this and ask you a question that I don't get to ask others. So what is Dr. Battle, what are your insights on the current state of diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporate America?
I think that we have folks who have tried to marginalize and really play semantics with the words. And I think for us as practitioners, it's really important right now that we make sure that leadership teams understand it's the people, stupid. It's the people. Okay. And there is no legislation that can mandate how you want to make someone feel valued, respected, and supported in the workplace. Because now we're talking culture, and leadership owns culture. And culture is one of those things, it's not baked in an employee value proposition. It's not baked in a mission statement. It's not baked in a vision statement. It's one of those things where it's in the DNA of organizations, and you know it because you see it and it's real and you feel it. You can look around the organization, and even if at that moment in time, you yourself are not progressing, you see clear evidence of others who look like you that are progressing and being developed in the organization. So that gives you a level of comfort to go, I'm in the right place.
Right.
Right. And so I think that we are really allowing the media and sound bites to dictate what we as practitioners should be bringing leadership teams back to. Because let me tell you something. If you cut diversity, equity, and inclusion out, you do so at your own peril.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, as people begin to vote with their feet, they begin to look in the organization. And remember, here's our challenge. For the first time ever, we have all 5 generations in the workplace. And Gen Y and Gen Z, and even some millennials, They're not even playing the radio with it. See, they are looking at it through the lens of purpose. And while whatever your organization's mantra is for how create shareholder wealth, building widgets, what they're looking at is, if you don't have things that don't align with my purpose, I won't stay here. I'll
Mm-hmm.
come and Gen Y and Gen Z, like they're like, we're not going to fall for the same tricks that our parents fell for, which is typically, I'm gonna graduate from college, I'm gonna get married, I'm gonna get a house with a white picket fence, I'm gonna get 2.5 dogs and have 2.5 kids, and now I'm in debt, and so I'm anchored to it. Young folks today are going, no, 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 no. They graduating, they still staying 4 to an apartment and eating beanie weenies because they like, I'm not going to wait 15 years before I can travel the globe. And
Right.
if you don't understand where the current landscape of talent is going, because see, every organization is still asking the same thing. How do we attract? How do we develop? And how do we retain the best and brightest talent? And so I kind of, my perfect analogy of it is the contemporary workplace today is almost like the contemporary church today, right? So like back in the day when I went to church, all you had was Sunday school. And then you had to go sit in the main service and you got to sit up there and listen to the preacher preaching. You don't know what he's talking about. And you 8 years old and you better not nod off, because if you nod off, mama going to pinch you like, wake up, you don't fall asleep in church, right? Well, the
Yes.
contemporary church today, people join the church for all type of reasons. Some people want to be on the chicken frying committee because they want to feed the homeless. Some people come for the music ministry. Some people come for the women's ministry. Some people come for the men's ministry. And the workplace is nothing but a microcosm of the contemporary church. It's the same thing. People come to your organization and you think because they are a senior manager in finance, they're anchored to that. No, that's just what they got their degree in. But their purpose is they like this employee resource group that you have over here that allows for them to be active in the community, that allows for them to have a voice in something beyond the purpose of why you open the doors for business. And if leadership teams don't really understand that, then they're going to look around 3 years from now and go, we got rid of D&I and all the other genius that comes along with it left when that left.
Okay. Okay. All right. I love when you say it's the people. If somebody's asking, what's diversity? It's your people.
That's
What
right.
your people need to feel valued, respected, and that they're going to be taken care of. It's that simple. I talk to a lot of organizations and especially specific to women. And I'd like to ask you this question. What I hear all the time is we can recruit them, but we can't retain them. We can't keep them. My question is, well, is there room for advancement? We had plenty of room for advancement. Well, why are they leaving? It's the culture. Speak
The
to that.
culture.
And
That's right.
how if organizations want to truly be committed to be an industry leader, an innovator in their products and services, you cannot leave your human capital out.
Well, they don't understand that the intersection of the human capital is where innovation lives. See, if I got everybody who look like me, think like me, got the same background and experience as me, well, then don't get mad when I don't have no ideas that's different than me. And so it's part of it is the being intentional about leveraging the collective genius that you have. And one of the things that I see oftentimes in corporate America is corporate America cannot do what the entertainment industry does by default. Corporate America cannot do by design. And what I mean is, Dr. Sheila, they will interview you. They will go, oh my goodness, you have this varied experience. We need all of this. So they interview you for your genius and then they onboard you for similarity. Because I've interviewed you, and then once you get hired, the first thing I start off with, now let me tell you how we do things around here. Like,
Ah,
well, I thought but you told me you didn't have this. You said, I feel this gap, that gap, that gap, that gap when you hired me. Now you telling me. And so one of the things that I say to underrepresented talent is, I'm not telling you come in day one and tell the organization how jacked up they are. But I do want you to get to a point after you have listened. I want you to seek first to understand. And then after you seek first to understand, you should become what I call sufficiently disruptive. And sufficiently disruptive means that what you have done is you have figured out, you have asked all of the probing questions. Why do we do it that way? And what are the benefits of doing it that way? Whether real or perceived, what are the benefits of us doing it the way that we have done it? And then that then allows you to operate with data, right? Both qualitative and quantitative data that then allows for you to come back to the table with a conversation and you are sufficiently disrupted. And when the challenge that you have is high growth, high learning organizations, they love this and it's in their DNA. And as a practitioner, I know it when I see it when I walk in organizations. And high growth, high learning organizations, the first thing they do is they're never asking themselves the question of what you said, we can't get them to stay, because the first thing they do is they leave the egos outside the room. See, ego stands for edge and greatness out. Now, most organizations don't know how to do this, and they got unwritten rules. And whenever I walk into an organization and I'm doing an organizational readiness assessment, I know it when I see it. I can sit at the back of the room, I can watch a function operate, and you might get up and you present your point of view, and you ask, are there any questions? Now, you don't really want anybody to have some questions. That's just, the nicety of a part of the game and the unwritten rules. Everybody go, no, that's a good job, Dr. Sheila. I think you did a good job. And then I get up and I do the same thing. But high growth, high learning organizations, you get up, you present, and then you turn and you look back to the room and you go, what am I missing here? Poke holes in it, right? And then when the collective genius start happening and the light bulbs start coming on, then folks go, Dr. Sheila, I think you did a great job here, but I think we might be leaving money on the table over there. There's 40% of the folks that I think we're missing that we're looking at. That's who we're leaving out. Because every single thing we do will operate before you press send, before you say it's done. You're always asking yourself just one probing question. Who am I leaving out?
Who am I leaving out?
I'm going to pull the thread through for your listeners on this. So
Okay.
I was working with Microsoft, okay? And I was having a meeting with the C-suite, and the CEO looked at me and he said, so challenge us. What can we do differently? And then everybody looked at me and, I looked out the window and then I kind of looked back and then I said, what if you made your software amazing for people who don't have limbs? Right. And now everybody looked at the CEO. Then he looked out the window for a little while. Then he looked back at me and he said, challenge accepted. Because I see what you're doing there. If the software is amazing for people who don't have limbs, it's going to be phenomenal for everybody else. So you solve for one and you benefit for all.
Love it. Love that. That is an excellent, excellent, excellent example. We're near the end of our time. We could talk for hours, but I encourage our listeners to engage with the Inclusion Genius Factory. Can you tell us where they can find out more information about your organization and where they can find you?
You can get it at inclusiongeniusfactory.com or drjebattle.com. And happy to have a conversation and help anybody on the road of transformation. And we have a number of different resources that we do and everything that if you don't want to have death by PowerPoint and you want to create a movement in your organization, then we help folks do those type of things.
Well, we always like to have our special guests give the final parting words. And I am one that always, I see the glass half full. I believe that this is not what I do to win. This is what I do so that I don't lose, and I was like, I have all of these certificates and degrees and training. I believe that just like products, technology continues to drive innovation in our products and services, that every time we learn and grow daily, that that's how we innovate as humans. And so I'm always trying to, like you said, pump something in someone, give them something that is going to, what would you leave our guests with that's going to give them nutrients and vitamins and leave them motivated and inspired and hope that we will not lose. Not this is how you win, but this is how you don't lose. Let's take us out, Dr. Battle, with your thoughts.
Here's the thing that I really want people to get. Everything in life is how you frame it. And so in your reframing, the first thing that I want you to do is as you begin to think about purpose, you ask yourself, there's nothing more powerful than a made up mind. And if you get it made up in your mind that you won't settle for less, if you get it made up in your mind that you are not less, if you get it made up in your mind that you deserve to have a seat at the table, if you get it made up in your mind, then you're going to have processes, rituals, and routines that will follow because you have now made the shift from being an overachiever who confuses activity with accomplishment to being a super achiever that is laser focused with process, rituals, and routine.
There you go, listeners. Have it made up in your mind. That's it with Unleashing Inclusive Genius with Dr. Battle. It has been wonderful. Let me remind you that you will be able to find links to resources that are Dr. Battle mentioned in today's episode. We hope that you found this conversation as enlightening as I have and that you've enjoyed our time together. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review because your support helps us continue bringing you these valuable discussions. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with another inspiring guest. Until then, keep striving, keep growing, and let's keep supporting each other. Thank you.